you have to be extremely strict. Like, I need a meal plan to lose fat. And so this is something myself and Marvin see a lot. And usually what we see is someone follows a strict meal plan with no flexibility for a few weeks, right? Progress is fast, not fat, but they feel tired, exhausted, overwhelmed, lethargic. Maybe then they attend a family gathering. They eat food that wasn't on plan, and now they feel that they have failed, right? They don't get back on track the next morning. They wait a few days to restart. By then, a few days of unstructured eating have passed. And then this cycle, perfect adherence, followed by a complete abandonment, repeats every few weeks. And they cannot understand why they are not losing weight. So this really comes from the thinking, the all or nothing thinking around food, right? And it's deeply rooted in the sort of the diet culture. And it leads to the thinking that you are either on a diet or you're off a diet, right? There's no kind of middle ground. And also, as well, a lot of the fitness advice and sort of dogma, shall we say, or principles come from bodybuilding nutrition, right? In the 70s, 80s, 90s in America. That was what really led to the big movement in terms of fitness. And so bodybuilding nutrition, especially when people are trying to lose weight, is one where it is sort of extreme. It is sort of for the obsessed, right? You don't mind eating broccoli and chicken for 8 weeks before stepping on stage, right? That is what your life is about if you are a bodybuilder. But for normal people who have jobs, who have stress, who have family, and all this kind of stuff, who aren't necessarily obsessed by the size of their biceps, it is something that is going to be the worst thing imaginable for them. And so this is a myth because fat loss doesn't require perfection, right? It requires consistent calorie deficit. And just like our eat more, eat some, eat less guides, you can have all of these things, whether it's processed, high fat, high sugar, whatever, but there's a time and a place for it. And so consistency in that long term looks very different from this like super rigid perfection over a short period, right? Fast forward a year, if you are consistent in a balanced kind of way, you're going to see much more progress than if you have potentially tried to stick to a meal plan time and time again whilst falling off as well.
Peace,
So,
it's funny you mentioned the bodybuilders, and
yeah.
yet when they're in season, that's when they are on this very perfect, regimented, strict meal plan, trying to
Mm.
cut much fat as possible. But you would know these bodybuilders in the off season, oh my goodness, it's
Get the
caution to the
calories
wind.
in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's just really interesting how you only ever see the meal plan, white rice, or the very bland chicken breast and fish and broccoli, and yet on the off season, it's a completely different story.
Big time. So yeah, I mean, like imperfect consistency always beats this short-term strictness. And it's much like, with your training, right? This is why we get you to build your training up in such a way where maybe you start with 3 sessions a week, right? It's manageable, it's doable. We're not going to be pushing you to 6 or 7 days a week because it's kind of unnecessary and useless. But, it's something that maybe you could stick to for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe, but then you're going to crash and burn, and then you're going to give up, and then you think that you failed rather than the approach that failed you. And so one of the things, which we factor in as well is the free meal, right? We want you to eat on plan, for the week. Then you can have that birthday dinner, the social occasion, going out with friends, having a date night, whatever it might be, and you can indulge in whatever it is you want. Because once again, like we don't call it like a cheat meal because that implies that you're cheating on your diet and you're doing something bad. A free meal is something that you have that you can enjoy guilt-free without any of these negative associations coming from food. And so it's not just about, this perfect meal plan that is going to solve all of your problems, right? And this is, I think, Marvin, what we have had a lot over the years. It's about educating you to make better decisions in line with your preferences so that you are on a diet that doesn't feel like a diet, right? It's something you can do for this long into the future because that is what is going to breed long-term success rather than hopping on a meal plan for a month and then coming off and then coming back to it when you've gained some weight and so on. We don't want that yo-yo. We want this to be the sort of the principled approach that you can carry on with you for decades.